Okay, I think we got most everybody back in here. A little while before we're done with prayer. Just a few minutes, half an hour maybe. Yeah. So in this half an hour that we have, well, read. Oh, he's right there.
Do you need to get the people back into?
I think we're pretty much here except for kids. Trying to round out this the morning session with how I mentioned that, I started with about 10 people, and then by 2009 there was a whole room full of people, and I don't even know actually how many people were part of that first writing the rule and first. But there's another segment of that. We said most of those folks were former CEC folks. But then there's another side of that, and that we had, and I'm not sure when Father Scott and Lisa.
That was down in Hurst. That was 2009 when they
were they at 2009? That's right, because they were at that restaurant. That's right. Okay. So at that same time, we have another, and they were not CEC. And they climbed on board with us, and as a result of them climbing on board, we have our Illinois folks. We have Ann and Ron and Annie and Karen and Scott and Cheryl and John took membership last time we were here. So we have that. The part of the way Father Reed mentioned that he was like the first one with the new glasses for Bishop Fred's new glasses. Well, if you look at the line of the way those new glasses worked, we started opening up to others that were outside of the scope of our regular influence or whatever of the CEC, or people that we know, to people that we didn't know and were meeting and getting to know. And Ron, would you be able to share your first experience with?
I'd be glad to.
Yeah, would you please do that?
That was Brother Larry also.
Yeah. He's here.
So Ron,
But he talks a lot.
Ron, come over and stand here so Karen can get you filmed.
Sure. I'm kind of shy,
Yeah.
Well, this is the way I remember it. My memory isn't what we used to be, but
none of us feel that way.
yeah. Preaching to the choir. What we were at the time we were a home church. We were meeting Sunday mornings in our pajamas, and we had biscuits and gravy on the stove. We read scripture, and we would gather that way. It was awesome. And I kind of miss those days, to be truthful. But then we found a chapel that was in Spring Grove, Illinois, and it was open to us, and we gathered, and we decided, hey, we can rent that and gather as a church. So we kind of grew from there. And you're right, we did not have a diocese or any of those traditional things that were going on. But what Father Scott wanted was to be with people of his peers that he could speak with. He had nobody that he could go to. He didn't have a bishop. He didn't have fellow clergy and all those things that he longed for to have fellowship with of peers of him. So I remember he was doing some research, and I think he went on the internet and he typed in some keywords. I'm sure some of them are cool people and stuff like that.
My name's not on this.
So you guys popped up, and I think he agreed, and we got him a plane ticket. We sent him to Texas, I think was the first time. And so we were excited. He was going to go and meet with MSJ, and I know he had some phone calls, and he was really apprehensive about, meeting anybody for the first time in this capacity. I'm sure that, he wasn't overwhelmed, but he didn't know what was really stirring the pot, as it were. So all I remember is we sent him, and then he came back, and he was stoked. Excited when he got back. Not only did he meet people that, he was in love with y'all the first time he came back. So we were excited about that. And then the next step was Bishop Fitt came to visit St. Andrew in Spring Grove. And I remember Bishop Fitt coming, and we were excited a bishop was coming, and we were talking about this and that, and he came and he accepted us I remember his words because I cried. Yes, I cried. Him saying that the two questions, or the big question was, would this be a good match for MSJ? And he said, I truly believe it is, you know, and but from that time on, the next year we went to the Lake of the Snows, is that what it was called? Lake of the Snow, and it was Forward in Faith and all these things. You know, and Annie and I, we'd never been to anything like that before. We went down there and they had 8 bishops in this, what we come to find out was a high mass. We didn't know any of those terms or anything like that. And the guy was swinging the incense, and it was just an awesome service and the power that was going on. And my recollection was that Bishop Fick, who really had a heart for contemporary music, and had invited Annie and I to sing at a service there. And we were just like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Who are we? We are no one, you know, what's going on? And that's where I met most of you guys for the first time too. But the one thing that was exciting was for Annie and I, and you're speaking of the lens of laity and that, how that included us, and how powerful the group of MSJ was, and the inclusion of us, just, you know, me, someone who put 3 piano chords together, and Annie who can sing and has a true talent. We were just accepted and loved, so that was our experience of it, and we've been growing with you guys ever since. So that's the way I remember it happening. We still to this day enjoy coming down here and being with you guys, and it's just the whole experience is always brings us together. And I have this desire to just be accepted, you know, and that's the one word that always seems the impression that I always have is the acceptance that we have as laity, is just followers of the word and coming and hearing, and we enjoy the rules of life. I was sharing with Father Bob how he used to practice reading through them, and its importance in our life and its impact has been huge. So that was our growth with MSJ, and I know that I know that Father Scott was really torn about not coming this year, but it's been just a growth that we've enjoyed so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, your singing at that Forward in Faith Mass, I believe is unique in the annals of Forward in Faith. In that there was a service that did not have 1960s music.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was to be an example, I think,
Of what could be.
yes, what could be.
And that was Bishop Fick's message. We did the closing service that year.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember coming to him, we had done a song, it was very contemporary. I mean, you probably couldn't find the words to it at that time. And I said, we're going to do this song. He just looked at me and said, perfect. And I don't know if he ever heard the song or not, but it was right on line for him, for what he was trying to say was, you know, we come down here and we don't want to do Kumbaya.
Kumbaya.
That was exactly
We actually did think about
We are one in the spirit.
Was that the 5th meeting when we almost got thrown out as soon as we came in?
Yes.
Well, we always have that twist about us. We've got some.
Well, and just to be clear, my husband always said, you know, it's not about good, new or old music. Not about old or new music. It's about good and bad music.
Right.
Exactly.
we love Bishop Fick, and he was so supportive of Andy and I and our contemporary views of music. And it's still to this day, we'll do a contemporary song and someone really appreciates it. But when we sing an old hymn, everyone joins in.
Yes.
So you can take it for what that's worth.
Yep.
With the contemporary spin.
Yeah, we might throw a seventh word in there.
Well, this is a guy who knows how to use all 88 keys.
They're there for a reason.
Yes, yeah.
Well, you gotta dust them off once in a while.
One of the things that I have loved watching about Father Scott and Lisa and Ron and Annie and Ann is that for a number of assemblies, and I don't know how many, every assembly, they brought someone new.
Yeah.
They were always bringing somebody because they were taking the car and saying, hey, we've got room for a couple more, why don't you come along, you know? And that's how we met Kate that way, and her kids, and we brought John down with Karen and John came that one time, and first time he came down, he pretty much sat out in the car mostly, I think. I didn't actually participate much. But then the next year, he was in, and he was all in, and he wanted to be a member, and that was huge.
That is, as St. Andrew, that's our, I don't know, I hate to use the word slogan, but what we say is come and see.
Right,
And
right.
that's
Yeah.
what we say.
And that's a good example for all of us, really.
I think what's so wonderful about, and we saw it especially with the Illinois group there, always bringing someone new, and invariably each time, once they came down here, became part of the family, worship with us, fellowship with us, they said, I'm in. So it just shows that there is something here, there's an ethos, it's more than an ethos, it's a community, there's a sense of community that we built together that's not necessarily something that, often you have community where you have to be a part of it for a long time until you really become part of it again, somebody new becomes part of it. But with our community, I think we have a certain openness, there's a certain, je ne sais quoi about our community that people come and say, I want to be part of that, I already feel part of that, I want to join.
Right.
So I think
There's inclusion, and I always thought there's power here. I mean, to come in and pray with you guys and be with you, the presence of Christ is overwhelming when we come here.
And I think that the key, and this is just me leaving the track just a little bit, but talking about that, the key to openness and willingness to accept people that we don't know and meet them and include them in just, even if they're just a visitor, but just to welcome them, just like we welcome our own brothers and sisters, whatever. The key to being that kind of person really comes from the fact that we know who we are, in the sense that, let's just be honest, we're not the pristine, proper, and whatever, this high and mighty thing, that we all have come through some stuff. We all have some quirks, and we're honest enough to know, we're just humans. And even as we gather here, and we've known each other now for a number of years, I can always count on, me goofing up something, or somebody, it's just, and it's okay, it's all good, what was it Bishop Wright used to say? We're like the redheaded stepchildren, We're the redheaded stepchildren, man. We're not.
It's the bald-headed stuff.
Well, it's getting that way, yeah.
That's me. That's the way I felt. But, I'm like the only Calvinist amongst you. So coming here the first time was difficult, to say the least. And just coming to Father Scott's church was difficult for me. I come from a Reformed background. Those stale and
It was providential.
Providential. Stodgy and stale, Reformed, types, but it was the liturgy that drew me. And then really, honestly, coming here the first time, feeling really out of place, amongst, first of all, a bunch of high church Anglicans, Catholics, so if you know anything about Presbyterians, and Catholics, they're like, I got a war inside of me, So, but it was you, Father Bob. Really seeing your children the first time at St. Andrew, it stunned me to see how reverent, I'm a big proponent of homeschool. Many in my tradition are. We want to get our kids out of the public schools, but to see your children and their respect. And then you just being humble about it, and that we could just transcend soteriology, And there's so much more in common that we have to that, and just your embrace, just sit down, have a cigar, and talk with me, you know, and just be a regular believer. And that happened here, and then you let me go ahead and share some of my heart last week when I was
that
here.
was fantastic.
And the things I was studying, you know,
Yeah.
and, you know, I just want my grandchildren, you know, to be, here's what we don't do enough of at St. Andrews, we don't get the incense out. But I'm waiting for those kids, and you can hear them. No, you're gonna hear them this weekend going, what's that smell? Grandpa's looking forward to that as much as I look forward to, Ronnie gets to hear them sing the liturgy, you know. And it's beautiful. And I just wanted them to experience, you know, this, and your hospitality is incredible, you know. I just thank all of you, you know. So I'm just telling you as one who's come, who just felt totally out of place, you know. But and yet you'll talk theology with me, you know, about other things. And I worked at I know I worked at a seminary, and I no longer work there. Last time I talked, I was in transition. I had lost my job at Trinity, right, 40 was in. Now God used that providentially to answer a prayer, which was give me enough money to provide a Christian education for my grandchildren. God provided more than I can ask or believe. I now make twice as much as I made at Trinity, enough to pay for my grandchildren to go to local Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, which was the education I had, the foundation I had. So anyway, I'm just glad to be here. Wish there was more kids, but there's enough, and the grandchildren are having a blast. And again, that's my experience. Sorry for
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, Larry, for sharing. Yeah, the kids are an important part of my whole mindset. You just said unless suffer the little children to come unto me, forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. Not only do they provide for us a lot of entertainment, quality entertainment, they also set an example for us of the honesty and the realness. You know, they haven't, especially the young children, they don't know how to put on masks yet. And we get accustomed to putting on masks, and we need to learn to just be real with one another. And that means that sometimes, you know, we can disagree, we can have very heated discussions, and still be friends at the end of it, brothers and sisters at the end of it. So enough of that. I wanted to introduce you to let Alex share a little bit about himself. As I mentioned, he's our newest member of the MSJ. Met him the first time in Texas last year. We had a chapter meeting down there at Father Jordy's church. Those of you who don't, you all know Father Jordy's my son-in-law, right?
They vetted him for us a few years ago.
What's that?
They vetted him for us a few years ago.
Yeah. When he was scoping out my daughter. Yeah. Thank you for that. He's actually a good guy. He really is a good guy.
We approved.
And you know, of course, he got permission from Bishop Hewitt to be a companion member, which means that he is as much of a member as he can be, and still have his authority in his bishop, and that's as it should be. And of course, he's pastoring St. Peter's Church down in Cypress, Texas. But anyway, that's where we had our chapter meeting, and Father Sean and Tammy brought Alex, and last year, and the other guy, what's his name? Grady? Father Grady?
Yeah.
And introduced us to them, and Father and Alex, who's not yet a father, but he's a pastor, been a pastor for a number of years, and we're working on getting him to the apostolic succession. Came this year, and was ready. He's been working with Sean for a while, and he's ready to be a member, to be received. And so we did that in Texas rather than waiting until we come here, just because we didn't know at that point. Just back in September, we didn't know what was going to happen, whether they were going to be able to travel, or what was going to, everything's up in the air sometimes. So I've heard a lot of things that Alex has been doing. Sounds like he's a very busy man. We do want to pray for him. His older brother died, right? Yesterday. So he's dealing a lot with family and things, that's why he had to leave and talk to the owner or whatever. Plus he's got other things going on. He's a busy man. But Alex, if you would, just introduce yourself, tell a little bit about the ministry that you have, and tell us how bad Sean's doing. Tell us the truth about it.
Well, we know.
It's your intruder.
I have to stand over here.
Yes.
I didn't want him to tell me to come over here, so I took the privilege. Anyway, my name is Alex Latu. I'm from the island of Tonga. It's in the South Pacific, if you don't really know that area. It's about 2.5 hours away from Auckland, New Zealand. And we have a population of about 110,000 people over there. And we have almost 500,000 people abroad, so that's where we are. And most of us, over 100,000 people over in New Zealand. We have about 100,000 here, 80,000 in Australia, and we have also various places like France, Japan. We have a good population in Japan. We have a growing population over in China. Last time I went over there, they have a text messages group, and it took almost 3 days to get the message across because of the venting process that they had over in China. And same goes with me. When I tried to email back home, it took a whole day for my wife to respond. But that's how it is over in China. But anyway, that's where our people are, and our island made up of 99.9% Christians. The majority of Christians over there is Wesleyan setting, which is Methodist, and then Catholics, and then Mormons. Mormons are working so hard over there. They already built one temple. There's another temple coming up in 2 or 3 years from now. So they are trying to take away the population using their what they call mission. Not only mission outreach, but also mission with paying the rent and everything, doing your shopping for you, give you a mattress or something like that, to draw you to Jesus. So their Jesus is much better than our Jesus, because our Jesus don't pay their rent, right? That's their message. But anyway, I have 12 children and 30 grandkids.
Oh, wow.
So you're already an MSJ.
As you can tell, we both, my wife and I, grew up in Catholic church, especially in the island. The first Tongan bishop, my first cousin, when he passed away, my uncle became the second Tongan bishop. When he passed away, the bishop over there now is my second cousin. So, and most of the priests and nuns are very, very close to me. So until about 20 years ago, I moved from Methodist to another setting. I'm from Catholics. I was volunteering, working in Sacramento, helping our priest over there, and then moved from there to another setting, doing mission work. And then from there, finally, about 16, 17 years ago, I was invited by the bishop of the Methodist Church to take over one of their church. They needed someone who could speak the language, Polynesian Tongan language. So I didn't even know anything about Methodist apart from learning a little bit in the seminary. That was it. John Wesley started. That's basically what I knew, that he was an Anglican priest. And when he invited me, I was already in England, went through where John Wesley began his ministry. That's all I knew about Methodists, but they handed over the key to me to take over the church. Very good size church when I took over. So they had about 150 members at that time. They gave me the property. The property was it's about a 5-acre lot and seating inside 280 and huge fellowship hall. So they gave me the key without knowing me. They just interviewed me one day. I was ISD working for a school district. They invited me to a meeting and we met, and I asked them to give us a week with my wife so we can pray, fast, and after a week we decided to take over the church. That's how I became Methodist. I was working for Methodists. Truly, I wasn't Methodist at all. You know, I could share with the bishop. And I liked the way that they believe, because there's nothing to believe at. There's no theological belief. You know, you believe whatever you believe as long as you work for Methodist. So I worked with Methodists, and you know, and some of the message that I preached they didn't like, and I shared with Sean, and I've been called to the bishop's office a few times, and especially when it comes to ordained same-sex priest. And so I went against it a few times in the meeting and preaching, and always reported me. And he finally took me from one church. He gave me 3 churches, and I said to myself, I think he just wanted to hang me. That's how he got rid of me. And not only 3 churches at one time, but I traveled almost an hour, 15 minutes to one church. Came home 1 hour from Hearst all the way to Ferris, going 45 to Houston. So after 4 years doing that, my whole being is down and down and down. And I share with my wife, and I thought I'd better resign and do other ministries, which at that time I began a radio ministry in the Metroplex. So I grew that ministry from 1 day a week to 7 days a week now. I had my own preachers as well from other places, from Hawaii, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco. So either they preached via Zoom or telephone, whatever they could communicate through the system in order for them to preach in my ministry. And 2019, I believe that's when I first visited Sean's church. I visited every Sunday to other churches and attend their service, from Catholics to Methodists, some of my close clergy friends, and visited the Catholic Church, you know, back over there, and I enjoyed one of their Catholic Church very much with the priest over there, and he invited me to quickly take a class in the deacon route, ordained deacon route, which is permanent deacons. I told him I'll continue to visit. So I visited Sean, and I get to like their church, even though it's a smaller context, but their heart is much bigger than other bigger churches. So Sean welcomed me, and I share with him everything I did and what I do at that moment. Sean began to trust me somehow, maybe this much. But anyway, he gave me a lot of responsibility. When I say a lot of responsibility, whatever he takes, come to a meeting or go to places, he gave me the key. Same thing, he gave me the key for the church. You know, and I preach on his behalf, and the elements is already consecrated before he leaves. So that's where we are, Sean, and about this community. This kind of community is not. It's really in my heart, because when I was in the Catholic Church, I was in the Marist. If you come from a Catholic setting, you know Marist. Marist is one of the largest order of the Catholic Church, from nuns to clergies and non-clergies as well. So I was a member over New Zealand. So when he shared with me, the only thing that I didn't really understand, CSC or whatever, you know, all these various community.
I didn't have the brochure yet. I arranged the game and got the brochure.
So he began almost sharing with me in the first setting of discussion, and I said, Anglican Church is having this and that and this and that, and I said, and then the second session that we talked, I began to understand, and then moving away from this and moving away from that, and then he shared with me this group, and I said to myself, I think I like that group, the way he explained it to me, or tried to sell me, you know. Those ideas. So I don't know if he got me as a victim or got me as a child of God. But you know, I'm so glad that when he told me the whole thing, I told him maybe on the second occasion or third occasion, I like to come and visit and see. But in my heart, I already felt there is something over here that this kind of fellowship will help me to grow and continue to grow in Jesus. And when I first met Bob, I confirmed everything first time. And I don't know what led me to like him, but you know, but it reminds me every time I go to Israel, I see all these faces over there, and I said, maybe he's from Israel, you know? Maybe this is the true cousin of Jesus. So I kind of attached to him. Second time, he asked me if I want to join, and I think he already explained it to you. And I said, yeah, either I'll kneel, or I don't know if I kneel or not.
No, you didn't kneel. You just
No.
in the church before the altar.
Yeah, and but anyway, I came and joined, and I enjoy every bit. Even though that this is my first time, I feel like at home. So that's a little part of me. I was born in the island of Tonga, but I grew up in New Zealand. So if you hear my accents so totally different from you, that's where I grew up. I grew up in New Zealand, and I moved to US in September 11, 1991. But 1991, September 11, 1991, I went back and forth with my wife and the kids. At that time, we came with 6 of them, and then we grew our family. You know, and that's when we were working in the Catholic Church in Sacramento. I said to Father Daniel, Father, you know how to quickly grow our church? There's 2 ways to grow your church.
Yes.
And he looked at me and he said, how you could grow our church? I said, either from outside, or within. And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean within?
Yes.
Well, tell the parishioners, make more babies. And you grow your church. So I follow what I say. I grew the church from inside. So right now we have, our kids, we have 12 and 30 grandkids. That's a huge church. Most of my kids are serving in the ministry. They all musicians, all of them, from brass band to keyboard, guitars. So they're serving in the ministry, and I'm so glad and I'm so blessed. God is so good. Even though that we had so many kids and so many grandkids, the best investments, not the gold, not the silver, but Jesus. Thank you so much.
I just recently found out I have a Wisconsin accent, which blew my mind.
Well, we're at noon.
Before we leave, I want to say one word about our kids. For those of us who do not have children of our own, our children here are so precious because they're family. I mean, as Sam and Elena and I've watched them grow up, and I think my first sight of Ezra, he was being held, and it was just like, now, you know, and I can't tell you what it means to be able to come and see them again. It's almost like the grandparents who haven't been able to see them for ever so long. And that goes for, especially for Isaiah and Joel, who I met as teenagers. And teaching high school is like, yeah, I can talk to teenagers, but they were not teenagers to me. They were men. They were men who befriended an older man without an age distinction, and that is one of the essential things of our fellowship, is that the differences of a collar or a gray beard, you were talking about how honest they are, you know, and that they naturally do that. They just overlook all the stuff that could intimidate, and they just go, yeah, you're one of us.
Amen to all. I really believe I'm glad we have a few kids, a couple kids. We've had years where we had more, but we hope that in the years to come, there will continue to be kids. Always come to the MSJ meetings, because our kids, because there's some benefits and there's some. It's kind of a knife that cuts two ways for preachers' kids. They get to go home to all kinds of things they don't really want to go to. But because of the fact that they have been present with me, and like when we have these meetings, or we go to them, we took them, and we even took the kids. There's actually going to be a picture that shows up in the slideshow when we had the little kids at Ford and Faith. Probably that.
They were the only kids there that
year. The only kids there. And then actually became poster kids. It showed up on their website for a while. But anyway, the point is that kids are always welcome, and we need to encourage them. Our kids benefited by their ability to relate to people like Father Reed, Father Sean, and Terry. I mean, Terry promised my daughter a car. He hasn't come through on that yet.
Nancy said she's giving me some grief on that.
But yeah, but they have these relationships with you guys, you priests, and that gives them somebody besides their dad who they can talk to, who's a spiritual leader. I don't know if you realize it would be really difficult to talk to your dad, even to go to confession. That's hard when the priest is your dad. We make them go anyway. His parents have the prerogative, but it is not easy. But thank you guys for being here and welcoming them as they grow up and helping them grow up. Your influence on their life is immeasurable. You cannot say that. So anyway, future for all future days. Bring the kids. We'll have some for them.
My babies this morning were sitting here and they started saying, hey, he's a pastor. He's a pastor. He's a pastor.
Yeah,
They go to Lutheran school and they see the pastor.
Yeah.
That was kind of neat for them to see that.
Well, let's see. Who's leading Noonday?
Oh, me.
You. Okay. Should we go to the pews?
Yeah, I guess you better, that's what.
That's what it is. Yeah.